Good morning and welcome to the Temple of Kriya Yoga Noon Meditation. I'm Sharon Stephenson, aka Swami Tapasananda, and we'll begin as usual with our prayer. May the infinite Lord of life, of love, and of laughter bless you at this moment. May each cell of your being and each petal of your mind be touched, be healed, be harmonized. May vim and vigor and vitality be yours. May love and laughter be yours. May you truly find that which you seek, and may you find that which you seek surely, swiftly, and most harmoniously. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So today's meditation is entitled, Sitting Quietly, Doing Nothing. Spring comes and the grass grows by itself. It's from Basho, a Japanese Zen poet. So sitting quietly, doing nothing. Well, those of us who meditate realize that it's not as easy as it sounds. We can sit quietly and we can do nothing physically, but mentally the mind is going and going, thinking about things. So that's our goal, is to sit quietly and do nothing. And then spring comes and the grass grows by itself. So the reason it's hard to sit quietly and do nothing is because the mind is constantly thinking, solving problems, which is a nice thing for it to do. It's supposed to do that, keep us safe and help us be creative. But very often it's looking for problems, looking for things to solve, looking how to make our life better. Maybe we have goals and dreams, and how can we achieve them, and what kind of changes can we make? How can we change life? We're not satisfied with life as it is, so we're looking for ways to change it. So the mind is always thinking. And so basically that's two reasons why we can't sit quietly and do nothing. The tendency of the mind to always be thinking, and then we're not whole and blissful in the present moment. But what if we could be blissful and whole in the present moment? What if we didn't have to be thinking all the time? What if we could say, accept life as it is, and just notice it and be with the present moment? Look at things that like Kriyananda would say, things that were interesting, just say, isn't that interesting? Rather than labeling, it's good or this is bad or I got to change this. The mind constantly in motion. So, but if we could just accept life as it is, we would be a lot happier. We wouldn't expect people to treat us differently than they do. We would accept their foibles and failings like we would accept our own foibles and failings. And we would just kind of look at life as it is and accept it. Because sometimes if you think back, what you thought was a good thing turned out to be not that great, maybe more of a headache. And another thing that looked bad at the beginning turned out to be really a blessing. So so that happens to all of us. I remember at one time, many years ago, I was in a relationship, or hoping to be in a relationship that wasn't working out. And a boss I had at the time was going to go see a psychic who was in town. She came to town once a year for a couple of weeks, and people would make appointments. I thought, I'm going to go. So I went to the reading, and she just looked right at me and she said, no, this relationship, that's not a relationship. In a couple of months, she told me what month, toward the end of that month, July, she says, you're going to meet somebody new, and they're going to be a solid person, their feet on the ground, dependable, reliable. That's the one. And, of course, I'm thinking, I'm thinking, no, that's not what I want to hear. I want to hear that this one's going to be the one. So, but anyway, it turns out I met the person, and a Taurus, feet on the ground, solid, dependable. And, 32 years later, here we still are. So what I'm saying is, like, what we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. If we can accept life as it is, while still striving for our dreams and goals and wishes and all of that, but just be just a little more neutral about outcomes of things. And while we're working toward our goals, just kind of see what happens and be aware, be mindful, and let nature take its course. Because if it's supposed to work out, it'll work out. If it's not supposed to, it won't. There's a motivational speaker named Deborah Poneman here in the Chicago area who has a 10-minute podcast on Saturday mornings. And she's the creator of a program called Yes to Success. And she says, it's when we believe that the world should be different, that's when we start to suffer. She says, ask a simple question. How do you know this is the way it's supposed to be? And she says, because it is. Because it is the way it is. That's why it's supposed to be that way. She says, you can't argue with reality. She gives an example. She goes, she shouldn't have lost that election. And Deborah says, yes, she should have. And how do we know? Because she did. And if it were to be different, it would have been different. So we have to accept reality. You can't fight with reality. There's no mistakes in the universe. We might not like what's happening, but the way it is the way it is. So if it were to be a different way, it would be a different way. So she goes on, once we can accept that we live in a benevolent universe and realize the utter perfection of creation, we know there is a way to overcome every obstacle. You may not know how to overcome an obstacle, but the intelligence that created the universe and the obstacle does know how to overcome it. Because we can surrender and know that an absolute miracle is on the way. Maybe not as soon as we think or in the way we think it should arrive, but it will arrive exactly as it should and when. So today's meditation is about realizing everything is the way it is supposed to be. We can't change the world and the people in it. And when we realize that, we end our suffering and live in joy and peace. So our problem is we want the world to be other than it is. We're always trying to change it to meet our expectations and desires. So the solution, okay, so the rest of the noon meditation is about how to overcome that tendency and to bring more peace and bliss into our lives. So the solution one is to accept life as it unfolds, not expecting it to be different than it is. When it doesn't work out the way we think or want or hope it to be, accept what is and then move forward, change our attitude toward it. And another way is to refrain from labeling things as good or bad. The author of Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, talks about not labeling things, because when we do that, we suffer. When we mentally name something as bad, it kind of constricts us emotionally. Then we know that's bad, and that kind of prohibits any kind of possibility that might come from what happened that we think is bad. So if we just notice and refrain from labeling, there's some kind of inner power. The power of the universe works through us, and situations that seem bad can transform in a way, maybe even immediately, if we refrain from labeling. He says, accept the isness of the moment. Bring an inner yes to it, and let it be as it is. When you're unhappy or suffering, you're not totally in the now. But when you can stay in the now, unhappiness can't survive there. When you're in the flow, you're in the flow rather than stuck in good or bad. You're in a flow and open to possibilities. So, and that's when we can have more joy in our lives. So there's about labeling, there's a story, an old story that I heard very, very, very recently. It's about a farmer and his son and the horse. Lived on a farm, and one day the horse was very valuable in helping bring income into the family. The horse ran away, and all the neighbors says, "Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's bad. Your horse ran away." And the farmer said, "Is that so?" Well, a few days later, the horse came back, and he brought a few other horses with him. And now the neighbors are saying, "Oh, that's good. Oh, what wonderful luck." And the farmer says, "Is that so?" So then the son was trying to train one of the horses, and the horse threw him to the ground, and he broke it. The boy broke his leg. So now the neighbors are saying, "Oh, that's bad. Oh, what terrible luck." And the farmer says, "Is that so?" So then a war breaks out, and the recruiters are going throughout the country and the farm countryside, and they're recruiting all the young men, but they don't take the farmer's son because he's got a broken leg. So the neighbors are saying, "Oh, what luck. Oh, that's good." So, you just don't know. We accept life and you look at it. Isn't that interesting? Because the way we think it's going to work out is sometimes not the way it's going to work out. Sometimes maybe a different path or a different outcome. I remember once when I was working, doing typing for people, and then branching out into doing brochures and newsletters. And I thought, well, maybe I could start a newsletter, maybe something about yoga. So I started an 8-page newsletter that turned into an 80-page magazine that ran every 2 months, sometimes 88 pages. So I never planned that, but I just started one thing and it blossomed into something else. So you just can't restrict yourself to your one idea. You have to be open to possibilities and change, because the universe knows what it's doing. So David Brooks, the New York Times columnist and author, he usually writes about politics, but he had a piece about, he does like opinion pieces. He had one about beauty. And he says, "Beauty impels us to pay a certain kind of attention. It startles you and prompts you to cast off the self-centered tendency to always be imposing your opinions on things like labeling." And so he says it prompts you to stop in your tracks, take a breath, and open yourself up so that you can receive what it is offering, often with a kind of childlike awe and reverence. Beauty trains you to see the world in a more present, just, and humble way. And then he quotes from The Sovereignty of Good, a novelist and philosopher, Iris Murdoch, who wrote, "Virtue is the attempt to pierce the veil of selfish consciousness and join the world as it is, as it really is." We read that again. "Virtue is the attempt to pierce the veil of selfish consciousness and join the world as it really is." So we want to bring awe, beauty into our lives, whether it's going to an art museum, hearing beautiful music, going for walks and seeing nature, the beauty in nature, looking at sunsets, moonrises. We saw a moonrise last Wednesday. The moon was rising over the lake at 6:04 p.m. So you never know where it's going to come up. There's no like lightness or anything like that. You just kind of scan the horizon along the lake, and then often you don't see it until a half an hour or 20 minutes later when it rises above the clouds, and then you see it coming out of the clouds. But this day I was looking and I see a pinpoint of light. I thought, was that some kind of boat out there? And it was like, got wider. I said, the moon. And the moon came right up out of the lake. it was awesome. So we want to bring, maybe you've seen Jupiter and Venus in the kind of western sky maybe a week and a half ago. They were quite close together, and it was like, is that an airplane? Because Jupiter is so big. It looked like it could be an airplane, but it didn't move. So, I found out later it was Venus and Jupiter. So things like that, they bring awe into our lives and beauty, and that's what we need to, in order to be present and centered and accepting life as it is, because there is a lot of beauty. There's a show on radio show called Hidden Brain on NPR on Sunday nights. And last week they were talking about stopping and smelling the roses. I mean, there's something to that. Scientists are looking into it because, people are suffering, and how do we get rid of suffering? So the guest's name was Dacher Keltner, a psychologist at UC Berkeley. He's the author of a book titled Awe: The New Science of Everyday Wonder and How It Can Transform Your Life. So he had moved from California to Wisconsin. He had gotten his PhD, and he got a job teaching at the University of Wisconsin, teaching psychology. And he was having a terrible time. I mean, he grew up in California, lived near the mountains and the oceans, and he was able as a child to explore all the wonderment of the area and the beauty. And now he's going to Wisconsin, which is relatively flat, and there's no mountains, there's no oceans, it's flat. He says there's no Mexican restaurants. So, and people here, people in Wisconsin, they root for the Packers. So he was suffering. He was having anxiety attacks and stress, and he was just feeling a fish out of water. It was just so different from what he was used to and the people. And so he was suffering. He was having actually panic attacks. He felt rejected. He was getting bad reviews. He was getting mediocre to bad reviews. And he was having panic attacks. I mean, he was denied grants. He was just having a terrible time. He was really suffering. And then some of his colleagues, and he started a basketball team called the Amygdala Players, a brain term. And they kind of got him out of himself a little bit. And then some of them were going to see an Iggy Pop concert. So he decided to go, and he got right up in front, and actually he could talk to Iggy Pop afterwards briefly, and Iggy Pop gave him his address, and he said, "You could write to me," which he did. Iggy Pop wrote back just a little, couple sentences, and that just gave him confidence and uplifted his spirits, and he felt capable of lecturing to his 300 students. And when you feel capable, you probably are capable. So, but when you're feeling bad and suffering and you feel inadequate, you probably come across as inadequate. So that, and then one night there was a big tornado coming, and he and his wife decided to go out and sit on the front porch and watch it. And he said there was just such a sense of awe and wonderment. It just took him right out of himself. And he was just the sense of bliss and awe was overwhelming. So basically, he says that we need to have awesome moments in our life, whether it's through getting out of yourself, playing sports or music or, nature. And then he met the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama said, "Compassion is the natural state of the mind. Well, here he is, a professional about the mind, PhD in psychology, but this opened up a whole new world for him. He saw what? He says, compassion is the deepest structure of the human mind in the midbrain. So it just changed how he thought about humanity. And then, of course, he was happier. So he defines awe is when we encounter vast mysteries that we cannot understand with our present knowledge. He says, awe quiets the egoistic, self-focused sense of personal identity and opens us up to the big things that we're connected to. So, sitting quietly, doing nothing. That's how we can quiet our mind and be present to the awesomeness in the world. When we're here and now, we can experience awe, just going for walks. Ralph Waldo Emerson, he would go on his walks in nature, and he says, there's nothing that nature cannot repair. I can imagine he was walking through the woods, and all the stress just fell away from him. So it's not only mentally, but physically, many, many benefits that being in awe can provide. So we can go for walks, stand near a tree, notice the bark, notice patterns. It's patterns that the leaves, when there's leaves, make on the ground, or shadows and the leaves. The trees are they're all different. I saw one the other day. The bark was so grooved. There were like deep grooves in it. I'd never seen a tree. You think of it like wrapping around the tree, but this is like kind of like caverns or something. A healthy tree, a huge tree. It had to be over 100 years old. It was at least probably 3 people could maybe wrap their arms around it. So this weekend is daylight savings time is starting, and spring is coming. Now today we have 2 minutes and 49 seconds more daylight than we did yesterday. So the daylight is coming much, much faster than it did on December 22nd, where we have like 2 or 3 seconds that start to increase. And I think the most is going to be not quite to 3 minutes, but then it starts to decrease. But anyway, we got 2 minutes and 49. So we're grateful for that. And springtime is a good time to just change attitudes and habits. Like let go of labeling and having opinions about how the world should work, but more just generally, accept it and notice it, and be present to whatever is. All the while working towards your dreams, not saying to just sit there and do nothing all the time. But sometimes it's a good thing to do. Just be present, doing nothing. So we look at our life, see where we keep pressing life to be different from how it is. Stop resisting, go with the flow. Breathe and accept. Stop naming. Accept as it is. And of course, go bring more awe into your life, however you feel moved. If you like to walk, just go out, walk. Why not notice things? Why be thinking? You get to somewhere, you have no idea what you even passed by because you're thinking about other stuff, you weren't present. So just notice that shoots are coming up out of the ground. A little tulip bud shoots and irises are starting to come up. Just notice these things and be present, and your life will be much more joyful. And of course, meditation. Meditation brings us to that state of bliss when we can quiet our minds. So when we're used to quieting our minds in our daily life, then it's easier to do that in your meditation because you're used to doing it. So I thought we would do a short meditation. So together, let's straighten our spines and take a couple of deep breaths. Make sure you're comfortable. Take a deep breath. Exhale twice to the left through the open mouth, the resurrection breath. And bring your attention back to the center. Inhale and exhale. And our gaze is straight ahead. Kriya says at the sun center, it is the sun center level, but if that causes you to have eye strain or you're looking cross-eyed, just let the gaze project forward a little bit so the eyes are relaxed and the jaw is relaxed and we're feeling comfortable. So we focus on the breath in and out a few times and we center our attention on the breath as a focal point. So right now we're concentrating on our breath, and then we're going to gently let go of the act of concentrating and let go of thinking about the breath. And we're just going to be present, looking straight ahead, being curious. What do we see? What do you see? Do you see shadows, colors, some kind of movement, light? Some people just don't see anything. It's just darkness. And that's what you see. Just merge into the darkness. Whatever you see, just be there with it. And then the breath will continue to flow. And if you have a Ishta, Devata, your chosen form of the divine, you can bring that in. As you inhale, bring it toward you. As you exhale, bring yourself toward it. Now, of course, you don't dare daydream. You've called on the Ishta. The Ishta's coming. You're very present, waiting for the Ishta, being with the Ishta. Even if you don't see the Ishta or feel the Ishta, know that the Ishta is present. Higher consciousness, the galacticness, the galacticness of the universe, of consciousness, the oneness. Just feel enveloped by that sense of wholeness, connection, or oneness. Being it. In fact, that's what the Hong Saw mantra means. I am that, or that I am. Know that and feel it with every cell of your being, that oneness. I don't like to say connection because it implies there's two, but there is only one. So just be there, feel it. All the thoughts have subsided. If they try to come in, which they will, gently, immediately say, shh, not now. Later, I promise. And go back to communing with the oneness of life, with the wholeness that you are. And then as we begin to finish, always bring up a feeling of positivity, of goodness, of gratitude. I like to end my meditations by focusing on the lineage and thanking them. I start with Kriyananda, just bring him into mind, Kriyananda, and then Shelley, his teacher, and then Yogananda, his teacher, and then Sri Yukteswar, Lahiri Mahasaya, Babaji, and feeling gratitude for the teachings, for the practice of meditation that they have passed on to us, so that we too can realize our oneness and connection with the divinity. And sometimes when I'm there, after I do that, I'm thinking I'm done now. I'm not done, because now I'm there. Now I'm in a state of bliss, and I'm not going to disturb that. Just stay there and be there, be present, be one with all. And then somehow that fades, and then I'm free to stop and be grateful and move on. So sometimes it's not until you think you're, okay, I'm done. My mind has been going. I've been thinking about stuff, but I got to get going here. So I'm just going to give myself one more chance. I'm going to shut my eyes, stop thinking. As soon as a thought comes in, I am done. Then I'm going to thank the guru, the lineage, and get up and go. The universe has other plans. I may stop for 5 seconds. A thought starts to come. I push it away. But then it comes back. I thought, okay, I am done. I thank the lineage. But then, just by thanking the lineage, it gets you to that very blissful state. And you're not going to jump up and run out of the room and start making breakfast. No, you're going to stay there with it. You're going to see it through. You're going to bask in it. Bask in the bliss. So that's what we're striving for, the awesomeness of the bliss. So meditation. So the things so far for us to start to accept the world as it is and not suffer anymore. Trying to change everything, change the people, change the world. We accept that we need to stop naming things as good and bad. We start to see life as it is and accept it as it is as we move forward, trying to make the world a better place, even though we accept it as it is. We stop naming, we get out into nature, we meditate. And also there's a woman named Mira Binzen who started she has a kids program called Anxious to Awesome. See, there's that awesome word again. I think that's a new buzzword now. David Brooks says we need to get into a state of awe. This guy who wrote the book titled Awe, The New Science of Everyday Wonder and How It Can Transform Your Life. And then Mira Binzen, in her program for kids, Anxious to Awesome, she says that helping others, just for the sake of helping them, is a way to enhance your well-being. Get out of the anxiousness to awesomeness and be happier. And I'm just going to give you a few of the ideas that she shared. She says, smile and make eye contact with people as you pass them by. You may be the only person that smiled at that person all day. And that could make their day. I mean, it's so easy. Just smile. So, utter a sincere compliment. Write a thank you card to somebody who you appreciate. Another one was, now these are for kids. Sweep the kitchen floor. Just for the sake of a clean floor. Pick up trash in your neighborhood. Remember someone's name and use it when you're talking to them. Help a neighbor. Bake something to give to someone. Plant a flower or a tree. Thank your teacher. Thank the service people in your community. I walk past a school area where there's a crossing guard, and I never thought about it, but one day I was crossing there, and another person was crossing and said thank you to the crossing guard. I thought, yeah, so I do that now too. Here's an odd one. Read to dogs in a shelter. I never thought of that. Hold the door open for someone. Call your grandparents if you have grandparents. Donate your toys and clothes, and finally, ask how you can help around the house. So these are, like I say, for kids. So she said, these will improve your mood and brighten the day for someone else. It's a win-win. So just to recap, our problem is we suffer because we have this belief that life should be other than it is. So the solution, accept life as it is. We can't change it. We can only change ourselves. We can't change people. Refrain from labeling things good or bad. Get out in nature and experience awe. Serve others. Sit quietly and do nothing. In other words, meditate. And take other times during the day. Kriyananda says, take a minute here and there, several times. Just look around. Just be present. And don't be moving. Don't be thinking, oh, I'm going to do my mindful moment while I'm walking down the street. Well, that's good too. But take also times during your day to just stop. Stop and smell the roses, so to speak. So, sitting quietly, doing nothing. Spring comes and the grass grows all by itself. So have an awesome day, and namaste.